Hey, and welcome to Glittering the Coast. My name is Angela, and today we're going to be doing these adorable hot chocolate North Pole mugs. They have glitter, they have drips on them, it has polymer candy on it. It's really a fun, and it has a water slide, and it has a fun design on it. So we're going to get started with my absolute favorite epoxy. You can always save 5% by going to the description and clicking on the link for KS resin. So this one is Liquidy Split Ultra UV. And I love this one because it is a fast set epoxy. So I've got two mugs that I'm doing at the same time here. So I have 2.5 milliliters of part A and part B, and that equals a total of 5. And we're just mixing it together. And usually it takes just a minute or two to get it all mixed up thoroughly. This one loves heat, so make sure that you are not working in a cold atmosphere. So what I do is I take a gloved hand and I just spread the epoxy all over the cup. And I don't want globs. I don't want streaks on it. If you have streaks on your epoxy, you're going to have streaks in your glitter, and that is just not a pretty thing to see. So I am using a beautiful glitter by my friend. Her name is Christy at KCC Glitter. You can also save by clicking the link in the description below. And this one is called Unicorn Dreams. So this one has a pretty gold shift to it. It's a very slight gold shift, and it is very sparkly, and it has like a blue to purple hue to it. I can't really describe it. If you've ever seen snow in real life, it actually looks like glitter falling, and this to me is the perfect snow. So after I have everything thoroughly covered, I want to make sure that this is on everywhere. It is all over this cup. It will dry for 2 to 3 hours. And the reason why we have to let it dry so that the epoxy underneath does not move. I do take it outside and spray paint it with Rust-Oleum 2 times clear. And that will help my glitter not to move whenever I'm putting the first coat of epoxy on. So we are back again with the KS Resin Liquidy Split Ultra UV, my fast set. And I am doing both of those cups, the white cups, at the same time. So I have 30 milliliters mixed up. For this first coat of epoxy, I normally just do a really fine layer, because if you don't seal your glitter, you will possibly and probably have lots of little micro bubbles that are going to kind of get trapped between the glitter and the actual cup and the epoxy. So in case I did not completely seal the glitter all the way, I just use a very small amount of epoxy on this step. So this is exactly how I do every single cup. When I have a handled cup, I generally use a glove on the first couple of coats of epoxy because I get super messy. You can just use a finger caught if you want to, but the gloves, I mean, you can see how messy it is. I'll get epoxy all over my skin, and you should not be putting that on your skin. So just make sure that every single little square inch of that tumbler has epoxy on it, and get it as smooth as you can. We don't want streaks in our epoxy on this step either, in case your turner is not level. That way we don't have globs of epoxy just kind of stuck everywhere. So I had to move to a different room because we are redecorating our house, and I'm now stuck in my laundry room, which is totally fine. But I have a small space heater going, and it will get my room temperature up as high as I want it to be. So those turned probably 2 to 3 hours before I stopped them on their turner. At this point in time, I have 2 coats of epoxy on my cups, and I want to go ahead and get all of the rim thoroughly clean and make sure that all of the hard little pieces of glitter that are still sticking up are taken care of. So I do that by just lightly sanding on the cup all over, just to get the small little pieces that are sticking up. And then I make sure that I use the X-Acto knife on the top of the cup at the rim so that I get all that stuck on epoxy and glitter and spray paint taken off. One of my major concerns is that I'm providing my customers with really nice products that are clean and, really smooth. So I make sure that if I'm sending it to someone, that it is up to my standards. If I wouldn't want it, then I'm not going to sell it to somebody either. Do a really good job at taking care of the way that your, cleaning is. So because I sanded and I'm about to use a clear water slide, I do have a third layer of epoxy on that I did not film. So this is a very glossy finish at this point in time with the epoxy on, and it is nice and smooth. So if you've never used a water slide before, I'm showing you exactly what I do on a very curved cup. Basically what you do is I have an inkjet printer that I'm using here, and you have to seal it. So you print out your image, and you're going to print it out like you normally would. It's not a reversed image. You can reverse it if you want to, but I don't. And then you're going to take Rust-Oleum clear, the 2 times clear, and you're going to spray paint that at least 3 times, making sure that it is completely dry before you spray paint it again. That way the ink is not smudging and smearing while I'm doing all of this work on top of the water slide. So the problem anyway, you want to make sure that it is, I'm going to get on track here again. You want to make sure that your cup is wet, and you want to make sure that your water slide is pliable without being too stretchy. So if it's too stretchy, your water slide's going to rip or it's going to get distorted. So I'm really, really, really working my water slide at this point in time. First, you want to make sure that the center is completely clear of water and bubbles underneath it, and that's what I did. And then we're going to work on the edges. The edges will pop up on a very curved tumbler, and I'm just kind of trying to show you at least that I still have areas that I need to work on. So basically at this point in time, you can see up by the H, it is not how I want it to be. So I'm really working it, trying to be very careful not to stretch the water slide. But these will lay flat. You just have to have patience and try not to completely mess up your water slide. I always print off a full sheet of these because if I mess one up before it completely dries onto the cup, I can just remove it and put on another one and try again. But at first there, I think, is a little bit of a learning curve, and then it just clicks. You finally understand what to do. So now you can see there that I was checking it and everything laid nice and flat. So I was super happy with it, and I'm going to let it dry for a full 24 hours before I begin on the next step. And this is a beautiful brown shimmer. I think it's like an eyeshadow palette, but you can just type it in. It's linked in the description also. It's a brown mica powder, basically. I absolutely used way too much here. I'm going to get super messy, but it doesn't matter because the end results are beautiful. You don't have to add that much of the pigment into your epoxy. I've got 30 milliliters of epoxy here, making a complete mess. But like I said, I don't care because it turned out really pretty in the end. So you're just going to make sure that that's completely and thoroughly incorporated in your epoxy. And we're going to start on our drips now. So, okay. You're going to see the nice and thick counterculture DIY, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I have added cornstarch now to this container. So the nice and thick, it absolutely works. However, that little bottle was super expensive, and cornstarch thickens up epoxy like a charm. So that is actually cornstarch in that little bottle. So anyway, if you have cornstarch laying around, go ahead and add it to your epoxy. Just make sure it is super, super smooth. So this is fast set, and I have the cornstarch added, and you can see that it's still kind of goopy. Look at that red cup in the background. You can see that I have the drips on there. I'm going to be honest with you. This is the second time I added drips onto this cup. I had a mess the first time I added drips onto these cups. They completely, it covered the cups, and oh my gosh, it was a disaster. I didn't know if I was going to have to completely just throw these cups away, but acetone and lots of elbow grease, and I took all the drips off these before it completely dried onto the cup. And it was a giant mess. I was rushing, and I should have just chilled out. Okay, so you see how it is thick on my spoon and whatever it's called, my stick, but it's not rushing down the cup. That's exactly what you want. And if it is dripping down the cup, like, you can do a little example on like a red cup and see if it's going to just flood the cup. If it's flooding the cup, you don't want it. Let it sit a little bit longer. If you don't want to add cornstarch to your cups, you don't have to. I would suggest using a slower set epoxy, not a fast set, and just let it sit for 30 minutes. Check on it every 10 minutes or so. Keep stirring around and see if it's to your liking. So it's not hard to do. Just don't rush this process. And you can see the little pieces of stringy part of the epoxy. Try your best not to get those on the cup. They will come up whenever it's dry, but do your best not to just let those little stringy parts of the epoxy slide all over your cup. If any of this did not make sense to you, please leave me a comment below. I would be super happy to help you figure out the drips or your epoxy or whatever it is that you may be struggling with. So I've got my torch here, and this will always have bubbles in it. So make sure that you are torching the bubbles out, or you will see them in your epoxy as like little holes. And I don't think that's cute. So I just make sure that I have plenty of, butane in my torch, and I'm torching along the way. And you can add as much of this drip to your cup as you want. Each cup will look unique. They will never look the same. And I just really tried my hardest not to get the chocolate on to the water slide so that you can see what it actually says. So I've got these really cute polymer clay, I guess, mints, and I got those, I think, on Amazon. So if it was on Amazon, I'll link them below. But I'm just pushing them into the epoxy so they're not sticking out. That way, whenever I do my last coat of epoxy, I'm not having to like fight over little, mints everywhere. I also make my own polymer clay marshmallows, which I could not find because I had moved into the laundry room and it took like 2 hours to move everything. So I normally do marshmallows, which are super cute. I just cut my clay and bake it to how I want it and put my marshmallows on here. But I really, really love the peppermints. They're super cute. So this is the last coat of epoxy that I am doing on these cups. And I have 30 milliliters for both of these cups together. So they're 15-ounce cups, and 30 milliliters is all I need. So I always seal in my drips and anything like my marshmallows or my peppermints if I have them on there. And that just makes sure that it's not going to get scuffed and scratched and scraped off on accident. And yeah, so just make sure that everything is thoroughly coated with the epoxy. I do have my own little branded stickers on the bottom. Those are really cute, and they're very pretty. So on the handles, you always want to make sure that you're not glopping a whole bunch of epoxy around the edges. If you do, it will look like a puddle of epoxy, and it will probably have a lot of little micro bubbles in there. And just make sure that you're torching everything along the way. So hopefully this video has made some sense. If you have liked what you have seen, please make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. I am trying to grow, and isn't that just the cutest little cup ever? I absolutely love it. I think it turned out cute, and this will make a great little collection to your hot chocolate mugs.